This one is a dual village seed which is set inside of a desert biome, and as you can see, this little village looks really attractive and it's bordering on the edge of this desert which is split by a huge river which simulates the River Nile of Egypt. It's a really nice generation here, and you can see the landscape is absolutely vast and the biome itself stretches for absolutely miles. Now as you go a little bit further out from this village, you can actually see this huge big gaping open ravine which cuts the land in two down the middle. As you can see, this is extremely deep if you want to explore it, and it's surrounded by a ton more of bodies of water like rivers and lakes. There's also a few different desert wells around here, some really complex mountain generation in a desert which is quite rare to see, coupled by the second village which is part of this dual village seed which is a little bit further out. There's some pretty nice resources here, except this village is a lot smaller than the first one and it's located more next to a mountain type piece of terrain. This particular one I chose to add on here mainly because of its insane generation. You can see that we're starting off inside of a savanna where there's a village which borders on a cliff, but it's not just any cliff, there's some really nice generation inside this one, right on top of another ravine just like the last one. The village borders on this ravine and there's a huge giant portal which sits at the top, which is split down the middle by the ravine, making for a crazy snapshot image of the surrounding area, as well as this is also bordering on a massive gigantic desert which is cut down by a massive river again for some crazy terrain and landscape. Further up, if you go into the desert, of course, you will be bordering on another structure which is none other than the desert temple itself. There's some really nice pieces of art inside the seed and visuals, and you can see there's huge big pockets of open land inside the desert which goes down into multiple cave systems. It's definitely a good showcase of the overhauled generation of this patch, and there's a huge savanna which stretches on for miles. If you go up the mountain right next to the village, the rest of the village actually extends onto the top of this mountain with more of the savanna biome which extends alongside it, and you'll see a farm as well as a blacksmith at its peak. If you go further down, you'll also find another ravine which stretches even deeper and further along the landscape, and there's just so much to see here. Now in a few moments you'll see the crazy terrain generation, which is the whole point of this particular seed. This is an extreme hill seed and it goes up really high. As you can see, it towers above the clouds themselves, and there's a few different square pockets of caves inside this huge mountain, so it makes for some crazy exploration. Now the mountain isn't just a standard mountain shape, it cones around and it goes pretty deep with a few different streams of water coming down from the top down to the bottom of the land. The amount of dark caves which just go so deep underground is absolutely crazy in this immense seed. This next one is branded as none other than a frozen wasteland because it's actually consisting of a collection of different various biomes. So for an example, you'll spawn in a snowy tundra which has multiple gigantic ravines going underground, surrounded by ice and snowed over capped trees. Now the interesting thing to point out here is it's surrounded by a gigantic cold ocean, but there's also different beaches of ice around here, and you'll even see plants like sugarcane on the beaches of ice, which is pretty unique, along with some weird generated land masses and mountains which are dotted around here. At the start you may have also seen some ice spikes and various ice islands which surround the tundra itself. This is pretty crazy to have such a combination of different ice and snow style biomes all compact into one generated place, and if you look deep enough and far enough you'll see a ruined portal which you can complete to get to the first dimension just that bit quicker. There's not really too much to say about this other than the crazy frozen rivers which stretch all along this land for miles, and the immense amount of generated mountains which you'll uncover the more you explore. This is a really unique one that takes place inside of a dark forest. Now the reason why I like this in particular is the village which generates in this one is just a standard normal village, so everything's made out of oak, but it's covered by the canopy layer of really tall trees in the dark forest. It kind of is this small village which is nestled and hidden beneath the trees, and when you explore it, it's like a secret little village which opens you up to a world of possibilities. Now the reason why this is so particularly cool is obviously you can find mansions in dark forests, but this specific mansion itself has spawned directly connected to the village itself. Now usually you'll just go inside these mansions and see pillagers and it's just like an evil huge house, right? But the cool thing that I like about this is since it's so close to a village, it kind of seems like the rich people live in this huge mansion and then the normal people just live in houses in the village next to it, so it kind of gives a different feeling. Now as you can see, the village looks really cool with all the trees covering it up, and there's not just dark forest type trees like dark oak, there's normal oak trees too, so it's a weird blend of dark forest and plains biome. Now I was going for some more unique ones here, and I was aiming to add some of the most unique seeds which I possibly could. Now the reason why I saw this one and it caught my eye particularly is there's so many different style biomes all surrounding each other in extremely close proximity. So for a start, obviously the main one is this Mooshroom Island, which has a pretty good distance that it covers of the map, and this is surrounded by a few different beaches and mountainous zones, and this goes for a long time, so it's really good to collect different resources. But what was really nice about this for me is the fact that it was connected right next to a mesa, which is something you don't usually see. A mesa is obviously a biome which kind of simulates the Australian outback, and there's dotted deserts and plains blocks in here too, which split in between these two biomes, so it's a really unique generation. Obviously in the Badlands biome you'll find abandoned mine shafts which spawn in more frequent doses inside of it too. This was particularly a really unique generation, and it's nice to see these two biomes, which are the slightly more rarer ones in the game, connected to each other in such close proximity. Now things don't really get exciting in this particular one until the end. As you can see, we're just kind of tracing around a normal village here, but I decided to cover this and include it mainly because it's in a plains which is bordering directly on a swamp, and there's some really nice big lakes and bodies of water here which looks really nice. Now this is obviously a plains village, but since it's so close to a swamp, it's like this huge big dark swamp with a portal and a really nice village all connected to each other. Seeing one of these swamp style villages is really rare, and obviously since there's not actually swamp villages, it's just really unique and cool to see. Now where it gets really cool is particularly if you find the double amethyst geode room, which is the main attraction of this particular seed. You'll be in for a surprise of huge amounts of resources from the new patch which you can collect, and if you're unlucky enough like me, obviously mobs down below which are going to challenge you. Now I haven't really explored too much of this new patch and seen all of the possibilities, but checking some seeds out in my research, this was a really cool one which isn't usually very common to find double geode rooms, so it's a really nice one to get some extra materials right off the start really simply and easily. Now it would probably take ages to gather everything inside this room, so I'm not going to do this, but I'm just going to show you an example of what everything's like and how you can get started with this. You'll obviously need to find the particular coordinates to locate this, because it's quite hard to actually find from the get-go because it's a little bit deeper into the map itself. I'll try and include these numbers maybe later or down below so you can actually find this, because it's pretty impossible to do it manually. Now, talking about rare biomes, jungles aren't really that rare. Now, you'll see there was a really awesome looking shipwreck there, which is kind of half submerged into the sea and the sand, which is a really cool, nice sight to see. Now, as I said before, jungles are not particularly rare. You'll find a lot of them as you explore the world, but one thing which is slightly more rarer is the sub-variant of them, which is the bamboo jungles. So you'll see there's a really nice looking bamboo jungle here, which is connected to normal jungles around a huge big jungle, river and lake. This is bordering on some ocean biomes, so it makes for a really unique looking area. You'll see that these bamboo jungle variants span for absolutely miles, and this is obviously the perfect place if you want to find pandas and anything else which spawns uniquely in this area only. This borders some pretty nice mountains and generated ravines, and it's really nice to explore and go through at your own pace. It really gives me explorer vibes, a little bit like Indiana Jones, so there'll be a lot to explore here if you take your time and check through everything. Now the main attraction of this in particular, which we're looking to find, is the temple itself, which you might be able to see all behind these bamboo trees really deep into the jungle. Now this is obviously the main attraction because it's hiding in between the bamboo instead of the jungle trees. Now when you go inside here, it's obviously not really unique in terms of a structure, it's just a standard jungle temple, but the way that it's generated inside the bamboo is really unique and awesome. And going down below, you'll find some pretty nice loot, but also a ton of booby traps which you'll need to avoid and try not to die. Obviously being in creative, this wasn't going to be a problem for me as I got hit by arrows directly to the face, and luckily it didn't take any damage. Now down here is pretty scary too, because since it's so dark, there's loads of zombies and loads of mobs, and there's also things like tripwires which obviously trigger dart launchers and traps. In terms of resources itself, this one isn't particularly a unique one. The reason why I actually included this is another really strange set of generation rules which you don't really tend to see every day. Now you'll see we are in a snowy biome here, but it's a weird tri-style biome generation which pits snowy biomes and ice. For an example, we have an ice village with this igloo blended and merged into a Badlands and a desert. So it's three weird biomes as well as plains which surrounds it, all in one small tiny area which blends into each other perfectly. This is another one of those really unique seeds which you just don't see every day, and you have to scour the web to actually find. This is a really complex seed with some weird terrain generation, but it's a really nice unique village. Now you'll see some strange things here, so for an example, like I said before, since there's actual desert, you'll see that there's actually a desert temple on here which is from the desert part, but it generates on top next to the snowy biome. It's really weird to see a desert temple in snow, but it's another really unique sight to see. If you get a boat and sail in the right direction, for quite some time you'll stumble into this really unique desert island. Now if you're thinking about desert islands or island survival or being stranded, you'd obviously start off on an island with literally nothing to surround you, and you'd probably be looking for treasure and any small resources which you can come across. Now this one is absolutely already fully kitted out with everything you need. The reason why I think this one is absolutely awesome is because it's basically a desert village village. But as well as the desert village, you'll find desert wells and a desert temple all merged inside of the village itself, spawning inside or around it. So it's a really unique seed where everything's compacted into this one dense desert island with so much stuff to collect and actually explore. As well as this, there's also a portal which is absolutely massive, which breaks through down the middle too. There's literally so much compacted in this one tiny area and so much that you can get from this that it's the perfect area to sail to and get some great stuff in the early stages of your adventure. This next one is not really my particular forte because I'm not really that advanced in terms of knowledge of speedrunning, but this is one which I found on the web during my research, so I don't really take credit for any of these particular seeds, but this is allegedly the best, greatest speedrunning seed which you'll find. There's people which completed the game extremely fastly with this one, and I think it's because of the amount of resources which it gives you, because it spawns you inside this village with a perfect spawn and a perfect blacksmith set. There's a lot of different items which can be looted from here, and you can get to the nether in an extremely small duration of time. I think this is possibly the best, if not one of the best speedrunning seeds for 1.17, so it's worth checking out if that's your goal. I don't really tend to watch people speedrunning or streaming it, so I don't really know exactly best times to speedrun or how to do that in the best possible way, but during the research I found this to be one of the best speedrunning seeds you can find, as well as it being on a really cool island with a shipwreck and a lot of loot compacted in one gigantic area. You'll see there's a ravine, a shipwreck, a village, a portal, and a lot of stuff all in one zone, just in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the ocean. It's pretty impressive to find such a small area with so much abundance in it that it was really worth including on this list.